Welcome back to the Fitness League, helping busy humans build strong bodies, sharper minds, and better lives. Join us each week as we cut through the noise, challenge the norms, and empower you to train smarter and live stronger. What if I told you there was a way to amplify your training, boost your recovery, and improve your overall health without lifting a single extra rep? These aren't your basics like weights or hitting macros. Today, we are diving into the science-backed health optimization extracurriculars, powerful tools that can take your health and performance to the next level. Think of them as bonus rounds of your wellness routine. So in this episode, we will cover sauna therapy, red light therapy, hypoxia training, including blood flow restriction and breath work, and we will wrap up with a bonus section on hyperbaric oxygen therapy for those wanting to geek out on the cutting edge side of recovery. Ready to optimize? Let's dive in. So as you may or may not have figured out based on that plug, based on that intro, some of these things are going to be more accessible to the masses than others. I believe every single one of these is accessible. There is just different levels of monetary entry. Some of these will be free. Some of these will be significant investments in your health. But I always think it's fun to kind of dive in, specifically if it's actually backed by the science, backed by the data. Just something to kind of put on my radar. I'm like, okay, down the road, what would be really cool to have and why? How much does this actually move the needle? So this was a short list of some of those things. I can tell you right off the bat, red light therapy is circling around my head right now. That's one of the top things on my radar that I've done a little more homework on and wanted to dive into there. But these will all be very interesting. So if nothing else, this is just going to be one of those fun, exciting, maybe down the road options for you guys. But again, there will be things that are free in this episode that we can tackle right away.
Yeah, I am excited to dive into red light therapy specifically. I know we're going to kind of start things off with the sauna, which is on my radar, but the red light therapy lately, that has also really been piquing my interest. But before we dive into this whole topic of all of these different modalities that could potentially help with health and longevity, I think that we still have to make a disclaimer that you should not be worrying necessarily about any of these modalities if you are not first focused on nutrient density, getting enough protein, getting enough fiber, moving your body, exercising, touching grass, getting enough sleep. Because you are not going to red light or sauna your way out of the foundational basics for your health and fitness. So as we dive into these, keep in mind, like, it's not like, I'm trying to think of an analogy of like, yeah, I don't eat fruits or vegetables, so I just take a multivitamin instead. Not the same. Okay? Not the same. So
it's like
as we
getting your
dive
car
into
detailed
these,
when it's got no gas in it.
right. As we dive into these different modalities, some of them are hype, some of them have a lot of hype. Some of them are worth the hype. Some of them are cool and exciting and fun to try out and like aren't going to cause any harm. So like by all means, if you want to try it. And also if you're drinking yourself silly on the weekends or eating like crap 24/7 and not exercising and not moving your body, this is not the place to start. These modalities are not your starting point.
So we're going to start off with that reminder, and we will do our best to remind you of that reminder throughout each episode. It starts with the basics. If we are not tackling the basics, as Joelle just very powerfully alluded to, these things will not move the needle for you. That said, they do move the needle enough where they are significant improvements in a lot of different areas, as far as boosting health span, improving longevity, reducing all-cause mortality, really, really bringing down the risk for cardiovascular disease, particularly when we're talking about sauna therapy. So these aren't, the 1 or 2 percenters. They're significant protocols, but there's a lot of cool things backing them up, and it's been very interesting. These are not all things that we do. The three of us, Alessandra's missing at the moment, but these are not things that we do all. She's missing.
She's with your 3 children. Hold on. She didn't get kidnapped.
She didn't run away, not yet.
She's missing. We've notified the local authorities.
It's been one of those weeks.
He says on a Monday at noon.
Wasn't there a meme? Did you send the meme or did someone just? It's like
I think I sent it the other day. It was like what a day or what a week.
10 a.m. on a Monday. Literally though. Yeah. Yep. That's the season we're in, friends. Mm-hmm. That is the season we're in. But let's dive into this. This is going to be a fun episode, and I know you got a hard cutoff. So first up, sauna therapy, one of the simplest yet most powerful protocols you can implement. So sauna therapy is controlled heat exposure, usually in dry or infrared saunas at temperatures between 176 and 212 degrees Fahrenheit. An important thing to note right off the top, because I know I just mentioned infrared saunas. Infrareds in most saunas you can buy commercially, typically do not get beyond 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, when we talk about that 176 to 212 Fahrenheit range, that's where most of the studies have been done. So, you can talk about potentially heat absorbing deeper when we're talking about infrared saunas, and it's just a different kind of heat. That's all fine and well, and there may very well be some significant benefits, but as far as the data we're going to be referencing in this episode, and the vast majority that you'll find out there, it is in the traditional Swedish saunas, Finnish saunas, 176 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you are, looking at investing in a sauna, you have to be very careful and even reach out to the company specifically if they don't list it, to make sure that that heater is going to get hot enough to reap these benefits. Because 140 degrees can be relaxing, but it's not going to do any of the things that we're talking about here. So why does it work? Well, heat exposure increases core body temperature. This stimulates the production of heat shock proteins, which are specialized proteins that help repair damaged proteins, refold misfolded proteins, and protect against oxidative stress. These are really, really important. So I want to take a little extra time to unpack these. They're basically the unsung heroes of your cells. When your body experiences stress, so from heat from a sauna in this instance, it triggers the production of heat shock proteins. Now, despite the name, it's not just about heat. They're produced in response to various forms of cellular stress, but heat is one of the most effective ways to activate them. Now, as far as why they're critical, what do they actually do? Number one, they're the protein repair crew. So they act as molecular chaperones. Their job is to refold those misfolded proteins and repair damaged protein within your cells. Basically like a factory's quality control team. So they prevent defective proteins from clogging up your system and help to restore them to working conditions. They also help with cellular defense. By stabilizing proteins and cellular structures, they help protect your cells during times of stress, whether it's from heat, oxidative damage, or toxins. This actually makes your cells more resilient to future stress, which is a process called hormesis. Basically, the acute versions of stress we manually implement: cold exposure, sauna, certain types of breath work, things along those lines. But as we continue, we're also talking about anti-aging effects. So as we age, our body's ability to clean up damaged cells, protein specifically, declines. The HSP activation essentially cleans house, reducing protein aggregation, which is associated with neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So very important for brain health. When it comes to inflammation modulation, certain HSPs help regulate the immune system, reducing chronic inflammation and promoting a balanced immune system. Heat shock proteins in general also help contribute to muscle repair post-exercise by helping repair the cellular structures and minimizing oxidative damage from intense training. Now, why does this all matter for longevity and for performance? Well, regular sauna sessions elevate the core body temperature and stimulate a surge in HSPs. So this cellular stress response doesn't just protect you, it upgrades your body's capacity to handle future stress. So over time, this means faster recovery from workouts, lower inflammation, and better cellular health. This also helps reduce the risk of age-related diseases. The main takeaway is that when you're in the sauna, your body's sweating, your heart's racing beneath the surface, your cells are flipping on their defense systems. Heat shock proteins rush in like emergency repair teams, fixing damaged proteins, stabilizing cells, and cleaning up cellular waste. It's basically a cellular housekeeping project, keeping your body young, resilient, and primed to perform. So as I'm dying and melting within my sauna, these are the things that I'm reminding myself. Kind of every bit of discomfort is my body.
So uncomfortable.
I honestly think it's harder than the cold plunge. Like you crush the cold plunge.
Yeah, I think I'd have a very hard time actually in the sauna. I don't use a sauna regularly. When I was younger and my gym would have one, I would sit in one for like 5 minutes literally to like warm my body up before a workout. And like I'd get to 5 minutes and I'm like, I am so uncomfortable. Yeah, I thought I didn't do well with cold. I definitely don't. Well, based on my first and only cold plunge experience, I think I handled that fairly well. I think I would really struggle with extreme heat for a while. That was actually going to be my follow-up question to you, is like when you get out, like you've talked about before, when you get out of the cold plunge, you have that like energy burst. I don't think you get that same feeling when you get out of the sauna. Like you probably feel like, I think I'm going to pass out when I get out.
Hey guys, real quick. If you've been listening and thinking, I need to start doing something for my health, but I don't have time for a full program, that is literally why we built the SDE Method app. It's a fitness app made for real people with real lives. Busy parents, working professionals, anyone juggling 100 things. You can get in, get a smart, effective workout in around 30 minutes, some even closer to 20 minutes, and log out knowing you made progress. You can finally take the guessing out of your workouts. We have workouts designed to be done at the gym or at home, and you get access to all of them when you sign up. As life phases change, you can pick a new one that aligns better with what you have going on right now. And one more thing, we are also qualified for HSA FSA reimbursement. So just hit the app link in the show notes, start where you are, we'll help with the rest. All right, let's get back to the show. It's that, but it's nicer. So like, yes, I'm like, holy moly, I feel high. Like that's the high that I get now is I get out and I'm like, not woozy. I'm actually going to keel over. Like I probably would if I didn't go chug some water and like chill for a minute after that. Like I've jumped right into the shower after the sauna and I'm like, I should have drank a couple glasses of water before I jumped in here. But typically I'll have that glass wait for me on my way to the shower, chug it and jump in. No, but I do feel nice afterwards, but it is like you actually said you would do the sauna though, like going forward.
I try it. I'm open to it. I don't know that I would find it very enjoyable, but I can admire the benefits of it. Also,
It's funny.
I was just going to say, one of my biggest gripes with the cold plunge is people being like, it's for mental toughness. You're not doing the sauna for mental toughness. Like it might be challenging and uncomfortable, but like I don't hear those same claims about people doing the sauna to do hard things.
I get more, I won't say more, I'll say similar mental toughness, quote unquote. But to your point, I'm not doing it for mental toughness, but damn does it take it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's got to be a different level of discomfort for me with heat versus cold.
More so because it's like, all right, it's not 3 minutes. Like I'm in here for 20 and you gotta like, it's all long. And you can, some people are in there for half an hour. Like I cannot go beyond 20 at this point in time.
I think I'd pass out.
It gets close, but it's funny. Your mindset towards it too. You're like, I can do cold plunge. I'm not going to, like, I don't want to, no benefit from it for me versus like the sauna is going to be harder, but I would do that.
Yeah. I think it's just because like I've done it before and I've enjoyed it, but I also just know that for a longer period of time, I would not feel good.
It's something that I do need to do more regularly. Like as we've gotten busy and things have gotten chopped out, like that's been one of the first things that I clip out because I do like to space out like an hour to 2 hours for my workout until the sauna. You can do it right after, especially if it's cardio. But as far as, training, we're kind of activating different pathways as far as like lifting weights, mTOR, sauna, AMPK, similar to running. So it's not the end of the world, but in regards to maximizing, getting the most out of, I want to space that out a little bit. And I haven't been able to. And if I go too close to bed, I actually don't sleep well. Now, some people will time it about 90 minutes before going to bed, and it can enhance deep sleep. Like you get significantly more deep sleep throughout the night. For myself, I can't fall asleep as fast. My sleep cycles are interrupted. I'm not even necessarily hot and uncomfortable still. It just has that effect. I'm kind of the opposite of what other people find. And the point of that is like your body cools down to fall asleep. So by activating, getting hot in the sauna, you're activating the natural cool down a little more efficiently. So if I do it earlier in the day, say like cut off by 4 o'clock, I sleep really, really well. It's tough to balance all that right now. But yeah, when you're in there, I used to bring in my phone, but I was like melting the sensor. So when that finally broke, my new phone I have not brought in there to meditate or to just, I brought a book in yesterday. Like if you are not distracted, it is exponentially harder, which again, back to the mental toughness thing, can be a good thing. So I'll do 10 minutes of meditation and some breathing exercises to get through it. Potentially a book I can bring in there, but it is a different ball game.
You brought up something important too, which is like, hey, when life is busy and there's lots of things going on, like some of these extra modalities get put on the back burner. And I think that's part of what's challenging about hearing about all of these different things, whether it's sauna or cold plunge or red light therapy. Like people already really, really struggle to make time to get to the gym, to make time to move their bodies, to make time with their families, their work, their careers, and take care of themselves and cook their food and prep everything. And I think people can get overwhelmed when it's like, oh, now I'm also supposed to do this and I'm also supposed to do this. And I think it's actually helpful for people to hear, like, you're not out there doing sauna and cold plunge and red light every day, nor am I, or Alessandra. Like, these are things that are tools that you can have in your toolbox to use when needed or to use when you want to, but they're not going to make or break anything at this point. Again, there are bigger needle movers. And I just wanted to come back to that because I think people can feel really overwhelmed when they do hear, like, oh, there are a lot of benefits of this. Like, oh my God, how am I going to add another thing? How am I going to add another thing to my routine? Another 20 minutes in a sauna, another 5 minutes in a cold plunge, another 10 minutes of red light therapy. It can become overwhelming, I feel like. So yeah, I remember probably months ago, I got an email that Costco had like saunas at Costco. And I remember, I think, sending it to you and Alessandra being like, is this sauna any good? Did I say red light? I meant sauna if I said red light. Is this sauna any good? And I remember you guys saying like something about the temperature, but I feel like they were infrared saunas. I don't know if yours is an infrared sauna. I don't know if that's like a weird interplay between red light therapy, which is like infrared, and sauna, like 2-in-1. Like, can you put a red light in your sauna, kill two birds with one stone?
That I'm not sure about. And I've we'll dive into the red light next, but I would actually prefer to keep our type of sauna because we're getting the heat benefit. I don't know so much about, the traditional infrareds. But if we could put like a real red light panel in our sauna, that would that break the lights? A, but B,
I know,
would that
tolerate the heat?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's something to look into.
I think I've seen someone do that. I'm pretty sure there's someone that I follow that I'll see if I could find it after this, but I'm pretty sure there's someone I follow who has like a full red panel that they put in their sauna. And I could find out what brand and stuff it is. And I'm pretty sure that's their like kill two birds with one stone type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about red light therapy for a minute.
Hang on, let me wrap up sauna. I got a couple more things into this. Just some quick hitters we'll go through. And I also want to circle back to your point as far as juggling everything and adding all the things. So one, what I would say, let's say you're not doing cardio. You've got your base routine, you're training, you got some good habits, you're doing no cardio. I wouldn't mind you starting with this because you're going to get some similar benefits. So it could be, I'm not running, I can't get myself to run. I'm not saying replace it long term, but if you're not doing anything, it could be a good place to start. But from a general sense of what you said, stepping back, you have your basic routine. And then these are things kind of sitting there in your tool belt where when you can implement them and get some additional benefits. And there isn't anything wrong with using this stuff periodically. You'll get, that benefit in the shorter term as you're doing them. But some more quick hit benefits and kind of how to do it. We'll finish with some protocols. So sauna does also trigger vasodilation, which expands blood vessels, improving blood flow, which supports cardiovascular health. It also elevates plasma volume, enhancing stroke volume, which is the amount of blood pumped per heartbeat, improving cardiovascular efficiency. It stimulates nitric oxide production, improving endothelial function. Upregulates brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, supporting cognitive function and resilience against neurodegenerative diseases. And it does promote autophagy, your body's process of cleaning out damaged cells. So you can do this instead of fasting. Some science-backed benefits: reduced risk of cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality, lowered blood pressure, improved arterial stiffness, improved insulin sensitivity and glucose metabolism, improved muscular recovery via circulation and metabolite clearance, and improved mental health support via endorphins and post-sauna parasympathetic dominance. Quick protocol explanation. You want to start, if you can get 10 minutes in as you build up eventually to 15, 20, and potentially up to 30. But the studies done with the incredible benefits were 4 to 7 days a week is the huge benefit you're going to see. But doing any at all is going to be great. Aim for 3 to 5 sessions per week starting out. Again, the target temperature is 176 to 212. That's degrees Fahrenheit. And if you wanted to do a cold shower, a little plunge after, you could benefit, mix in the benefits of contrast therapy. Again, sauna is not just relaxing. It's one of the most research-backed longevity tools available to us today.
Sometimes Josh and I disagree on things, and I'm going to give one prime example. As an exercise physiologist, I will not support the statement personally.
I didn't say for it. I didn't say substitute.
I knew you knew I was going to come for this. I knew you knew I was going to come for this, but I don't agree. I don't agree, but here's why. If you guys aren't picking this up yet, Josh had mentioned if you do the sauna instead of cardio, not that he said to not do cardio, but if you do that, you might have similar benefits. My kind of devil's advocate to that is if you are going to sit in the sauna for 20 minutes and you have time to sit in the sauna for 20 minutes, then you have time to go and get in a 20-minute cardio session.
I agree with that. I'm saying for the person who has that and isn't going to do it anyway. If they're not going to run, they're not going to ride the bike, they're not going to swim, I'm not doing cardio. I refuse it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, then this is a tool, a helpful tool. I don't think it's a apples to apples substitute, but it's something that could benefit your health, but I would not recommend not doing cardio in lieu of sauna or sauna. So
you're not disagreeing with me. You're spinning my words.
No, I am.
You're not disagreeing with me. We're saying the same thing.
I'm not agreeing with you either.
I agree with you. I agree with you. You should be doing cardio. If you are just the person who says, I'm not doing it, this is better than nothing. This is better than not doing anything.
I can agree with that. I can agree with it being better than nothing. I disagree with it being a substitute.
Never said that.
Let's ask the people. Let us know.
We'll play it back. We'll play it back.
I wish we could put a poll up on Spotify where people could vote. I don't think they could. I don't think
we can just listen to this episode after it goes up. We'll go back to this.
Comment and let us know. Okay, can we dive into red light?
Take it away.
Okay, so red light therapy, also known as low-level laser therapy or photobiomodulation. Thank God we just call it red light instead. It involves exposing the skin to low wavelengths of red or near infrared light, typically around 600 to 1,000,
nanometers?
Yeah, something, NM nanometers. So it's been touted, probably as you guys have heard, from everything from skin rejuvenation to improved recovery to fat loss and enhanced mitochondrial function. So let's kind of first and foremost break down what the evidence does show. Y'all know that I'm big on hey, is this evidence-based? So I could get a little bit more into the weeds in a minute, but I'm going to give you a first and foremost overview of the evidence that we do and don't have. So for skin health, the evidence is pretty strong. Rejuvenation, acne, wrinkles, wound healing. And I would say that's been mostly where I've seen people talk about really positive success stories. I'm curious, Josh, what you've heard anecdotally from people. I've seen people put it on bad burns or cuts that were open and things like that. I've heard very good things about wound healing specifically and skin health. Pain and inflammation, we have pretty moderate to strong evidence on, especially joint pain or chronic pain. That's what's piquing my interest the most with my neck pain. I'm curious if I could just blast some red light on that and that will maybe help my neck. Exercise recovery, dose dependent, maybe some small effects. Data is kind of still emerging on that in terms of evidence. Hair regrowth, I've seen people start to do these red light helmets. Have you seen those?
The caps, yeah.
Yeah, caps and helmets.
And the face masks.
Yep. So hair regrowth, that seems pretty mixed in terms of evidence. It may help with thinning hair, but again, evidence there is mixed. Fat loss, super weak data. Yeah, nothing crazy there. Mood and cognition, evidence is still kind of early, needs more evidence, not a whole lot there. And then the last one that is a pretty heavy claim is, red light being great for your hormones or your testosterone. And as far as I could find, that was completely unfounded. There is no reliable evidence on that. And I think what happens sometimes with these is people start to theorize claims if it's good for this, if it's good for inflammation, then it must also be good for hormones. So I think that's kind of what starts to happen with these claims as people take what claims there are and find the strong evidence for that and then try to connect that to something else because the body is systemic. I get where those things come from, but we can't just theorize claims. So let's back up a little bit. For skin health and wound healing, the reason that might happen is because the red light can help to stimulate collagen production, We hear a lot about collagen and people taking collagen. So the fact that we can kind of internally stimulate collagen production seems really helpful, improve the skin texture, reduce fine lines. And it's also kind of clinically being used for psoriasis, acne, wounds. I would love to ask a dermatologist about this to see if it's something that they're like regularly using in practice or suggesting that their patients are using in practice.
It's interesting you brought up the acne thing. When I was looking at the face masks for it, there were certain ones that had different lights, different patterns, I think they actually went through cycles, certain things for different purposes. So the acne one, I believe, was a blue light. That actually switched over to a blue light, or it might have been, I think it was blue. So I'm interested, like, is this kind of a general blanket across all these benefits, or are there different settings to achieve different things? And also, even go back to like your Costco example or question on the saunas, I also get skeeved out, like, can I just go buy one of these anywhere? Like, it's a light. Like, is it actually red light, or do they put a red filter bulb over a regular light and you're spending $500 or $1,000 or thousands, depending on if you're getting a panel or whatever? So this is one of those that seems to be easy to artificially replicate, which is why I haven't been all in on one, and you got to find a reputable company, but very, very curious about this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pain and inflammation standpoint intrigues me the most. And also, like, if I didn't have to get Botox and I could just red light my face and that would take care of my skin without having to inject poison into my forehead, that's
that was my
intriguing
next
to me.
question for you. Is it fine lines or is it wrinkles? Because you said it two different ways, so I'm curious.
When I have Botox, it's fine lines. When I don't have Botox, it is straight up deep craters in my forehead. But yeah, I would say the skin part is really intriguing to me. It's funny, even the skin stuff, like, I don't know if Kai or Cora or anyone in your family has had this, but both my girls get really bad like keratosis pilaris on their arms, like really, really bumpy arms. And like both of them have super, super sensitive skin and like super dry, super sensitive. And I always wonder, like, would something like this, like their skin?
Yeah.
So anyway, pain and inflammation, this is the other part that's really intriguing to me. So evidence does support a red light therapy use for joint pain, tendonitis, osteoarthritis, muscle soreness in some capacity. It may also reduce inflammatory cytokines and increase local circulation, and has even been shown to be helpful in reducing pain in temporomandibular disorders, neck pain. Hint, hint, wink, wink, for any podcast listeners who know my neck is janky, and even fibromyalgia. So that is very interesting to me, like use for chronic pain or localized pain in a specific spot or even injury recovery. I think that piques my interest more than anything. I just think that's so interesting. So when we talk about modulating like inflammatory cytokines, that means that we're basically reducing chronic inflammation, stimulating fibroblasts, enhancing collagen production. That's what's helping with that injury healing or wound healing. So there are definitely some interesting cellular effects of this, which again, just kind of piques my interest. And from what I could tell, there's not many downsides. Like I'm not super opposed to the trendy things that are kind of buzzwordy and whatnot if they're not going to do any harm. It's when you start introducing, these buzzwordy modalities and whatever that could actually potentially cause harm. As far as I could tell, this is not causing harm to anyone. And that's where I kind of am with cold plunge, sauna, whatever. Like try it. If you like it, great. Daily cold plunges will never be my thing. I did my one. I proved my point. I'm good to go. But like, it's not going to hurt me. So like it's fine. So yeah. So this is very interesting to me.
Now you have a few friends who use this stuff, right? Anecdotally, have they told you anything?
For red light specifically?
Yeah. Yep.
I have seen people talk specifically about red light with pain and skin. Those I feel like are the two most like prevalent anecdotal claims. And that is like when I have friends who share about them on Instagram or just in real life, those are the same things that they're echoing, which is, I mean, good in the sense that like that's what the evidence is echoing too, like what evidence we do have. In terms of exercise recovery and performance, I would say this is a little bit less evidence-based. There's some emerging research here, but not super promising on red light therapy before and after exercise. It might maybe reduce DOMS. That's I'm trying to think about like from a cellular level of what we know about like ATP production and the electron transport chain, and even like ROS signaling, which can change kind of like cellular responses and oxidative stress. I'm trying to think about from a mechanical standpoint, like could it reduce DOMS cellularly? And I'm struggling with the connection there. On one hand, I could see it possibly being helpful because it is affecting things at the cellular level, but also kind of sounds like a little bit of a stretch, but who knows?
Well, there's a couple things that kind of go on both sides of it, though, I feel like. So as far as improving mitochondrial function and ATP production, those are beneficial in regards to performance. At the same time, and this is where I was like, wait, if it's doing this, shouldn't it be doing that? If it's reducing inflammation significantly, like that is one of the drivers of growth, is some level of inflammation. So if it's pushing performance on one side, but it's also reducing some triggers for growth on the other side, maybe there's a bit of a wash, which is why we're getting that neutral data. Listen, if you're tired of the all or nothing cycles, the diet starts Monday, the I know what to do, I'm just not doing it feeling, we should probably talk. Our one-on-one online coaching isn't just about workouts and meal plans. It's about building something that actually fits your life. No cookie cutter templates, no guilt, just real coaching and real results. Plus, we've got a pretty big team, so we can even pair you with an expert who actually understands your lifestyle because they've gone through it too. If that sounds like what you've been missing, check out the link in the show notes to apply for coaching. Then we'll send you the link to book a free, no obligation consult call with our team. There are no hard closes. We won't even take your credit card over the phone. You'll get the details to sign up on your own time. And more good news, we are in fact qualified for HSA FSA reimbursement. One last thing, we even offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. What are you waiting for? Spots are limited, so apply today. All right, let's get back to the show.
Right. I agree. So, and I think that's why it's like, hey, there's some emerging data here, but it's not super promising yet that it, can potentially enhance recovery or enhance performance. From what I have seen, it is very dose and context dependent. And the reason that it's kind of like, hey, mixed results here is because the results are varying a lot based on the dose of the red light therapy and the context in which it's being used, like before exercise versus after exercise. Again, with hair growth, mixed and preliminary data, some studies are showing improved hair density in people with androgenic alopecia, so like male, female pattern baldness. It is believed potentially to stimulate follicular activity via, again, those mitochondrial pathways. There are some small scale studies that show promise, but I would argue that a little bit more robust research is needed there. Fat loss, body contouring, I haven't heard these claims a ton, but when I was researching this, it seemed like that was one of the proposed buzzy things that people were claiming red light would do. No, just no. No, limited data, inconsistent evidence. We know that fat loss, we need a deficit. Putting some red light on your skin is not going to cause inherent fat loss. I would argue most people who are potentially doing red light therapy are also maybe dieting, taking better care of themselves, exercising more, etc. And then we're quick to be like, it must be the red light therapy and not the deficit, the exercise, the movement, the being more health conscious, etc. So evidence is weak or lacking with systemic fat loss, with major hormonal changes, with any kind of significant, let's say, boost in testosterone in men or women. A lot of times I think those claims get made by companies selling their devices with not much support. Kind of to come back to what Josh was saying, like you do need to find a brand that you know and trust. I cannot suggest any at this point because I'm not using any. Maybe we could get back to you on that because our interest is definitely peaked. But yeah, the theory
I've looked into, I can give some numbers, some names. MitoRed and Juvie, JOOVY.
I've heard of Juvie. I haven't heard of the other one.
MitoRed. I think like the playoff mitochondria potentially.
Yeah. So we'll get back to you on that if we find a favorite. But to kind of wrap things up here, the theory is that red and near infrared light can penetrate a few millimeters into the skin and tissue. It's then absorbed by the cytochrome C oxidase, which is something in your mitochondria, and then can boost ATP production, which is essentially energy, and modulate inflammation, oxidative stress, and maybe even gene expression. But how much of that translates into meaningful outcomes in people is going to depend on the wavelength that you're using, the dosage that you're using, the duration and the frequency that you're using, and even the distance from like how far you're holding it to the skin. So a lot of at-home devices don't always disclose their actual output and can be underpowered, and you might not be getting those benefits. So again, coming back to researching a brand, finding a brand that you know and trust. But yeah, it definitely seems intriguing. More energy, less inflammation, better skin health, less pain. I mean, I'm intrigued. I'm
intrigued as well.
I would like to implement it and see if I notice a difference.
Absolutely. As far as how-tos, using a panel or a handheld device, keeping it 6 to 12 inches from your skin, exposing each area for 10 to 15 minutes, and doing this 4, 5, 6, potentially daily, 4 to 5, 6, 7 days a week. Yeah. So if you want to sponsor the show and you are a red light company,
if you're listening,
we would all like devices. All right, guys. Our third section, there's actually a bit to unpack here. We got a few different sections in this section of oxygen deprivation. So we are going to cruise through this part and try to keep it interesting as we fly by. But what is it? Hypoxia training involves restricting oxygen to simulate high altitude conditions. So methods could include altitude tents, training masks, breath holds, and intermittent hypoxic training. Now, depending on when you're doing certain things, there are 4 different benefits. Typically, we're not going to recommend the training mask like during training, because that's really when you want to take advantage of the benefits of this altitude training. There's this protocol, I believe it's called live high, train low. So like if you slept in the altitude tent, you adapt during that longer period of oxygen deprivation while you're sleeping. You come back to the real world down at sea level, train at that with those extra red blood cells and get some performance benefits versus actually restricting your performance if you are deprived during your training. Some benefits to it, but considerably less or substantially different than the live high, train low methodology. But how it works, we're going to say some big words here, try to get them all in. Hypoxia triggers hypoxia-inducible factor 1 alpha. This initiates the production of erythropoietin, stimulating red blood cell formation. This enhances angiogenesis, which is the formation of new blood cells. It can stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, increasing mitochondrial density. Again, these are the powerhouse of our cells, helping with energy. Promoting the release of stem cells for tissue repair and regeneration. Potential increases in vascular endothelial growth factor, VEGF. Potential to enhance insulin sensitivity and glucose uptake. Improving oxidative enzyme activity, making muscles more efficient, and boosting production of nitric oxide to support vascular health. This is specifically for the IHT, the intermittent hypoxia training. So again, first of the subsections that we're diving into with this. How to do it? That would include 4 to 6 cycles of 5 minutes of low oxygen air. Now, for this protocol specifically, there are devices. So we mentioned the altitude tents, we mentioned the training masks. I suppose you could actually sleep with the training mask if you didn't want to buy the tent, whichever was more comfortable. And you're doing about a few sessions of these per week. Alternatively, or the alternatives would be the sleep tent or the mask. Now, one kind of fun aspect to this that we have talked a little bit about in the past is blood flow restriction training. And Joelle, I know this is one of your areas of expertise. So if you want to kind of explain that a little bit, it's basically hypoxia, but localized. Exactly.
Yeah. I do just want to come back to training masks real quick, because when I first started doing my master's back in like 2015-ish, 2014, 2015, I feel like that's when the altitude training masks were getting really popular. I don't know if you guys were like training at a local gym at that time, but you'd see people like on the Stairmaster with these Bane looking Darth
but
Vader
those ones, they
masks.
weren't connected. It was just making it harder to breathe, right? They weren't connected to a machine.
And that's what I was going to say. Like those suck. Those are not doing anything. Those are not mimicking high altitude. They're just literally making it harder for you to breathe. That is not the same thing as like what we're talking about here. They do not stimulate high altitude training. So I just wanted to, I want to make that clarification, because I don't want anyone to go out and buy these stupid masks.
Well, I think everyone was wearing those for COVID too. When you couldn't go to the gym you couldn't work out without the mask.
A bit different. Yeah. You're just they don't lower oxygen pressure like high altitude does. They just restrict airflow. So yeah, anyway, blood flow restriction. I do think we touched on this in one episode, but Josh had brought up this morning before the podcast, like, I want to dive into hypoxia a little bit. And I was like, oh, we could touch on BFR with that. So when we talk about hypoxia, we're talking about restricting blood flow. So if you've heard the previous BFR episode, basically what we're doing is adding some sort of restraint or cuff to a muscle to basically occlude blood flow. And so when we're doing that, we're basically getting blood to pool in the muscle. So we're restricting venous blood return. So blood that's leaving the muscle while only partially limiting the arterial inflow. So that's kind of having this blood pooling effect, and it creates a hypoxic or low oxygen environment in the muscle. And that kind of hypoxic environment then stimulates these anabolic responses. What's interesting about BFR particularly is that you're eliciting this hypertrophic response, or this anabolic response, at a really low load. So that's kind of the biggest thing to point out there. You're not necessarily getting better effects with BFR than you would if you were not using BFR. It's that you can train at a much lower load using BFR and potentially get those same effects. So again, you'd see similar like hypertrophy gains with low loads than you would see, but with higher loads and no BFR. Does that make sense? Okay, trying not to confuse anyone there. So with that hypoxic state and with kind of the physiology behind BFR, the three kind of main components there are metabolic stress, cellular signaling, and fiber recruitment. So the restriction in blood flow is increasing the accumulation of different metabolites like lactate and hydrogen ions in the muscle. And then that metabolic stress acts as a stimulus for muscle growth by increasing growth hormone and some other metabolic and hormones there, and then also makes a difference in muscle fiber recruitment. The other piece there is that the low oxygen kind of tension that's happening and the metabolic buildup that's happening when we're pooling blood in the muscle with BFR, it can also activate signaling pathways like mTOR, which is basically central to protein synthesis and hypertrophy. And then with fiber recruitment, normally we need a really high load to recruit fast twitch muscle fibers, but because BFR causes kind of earlier fatigue in those slow twitch fibers, you get to kind of recruit those fast twitch fibers faster and at lower intensities. So basically, at the muscular level, the hypoxic environment combined with the metabolic byproduct and accumulation leads to cellular swelling, increases in anabolic signaling, and then at the metabolic level, the buildup of lactate and other metabolites can further enhance that signaling. So yeah, it's very interesting. The environment that BFR creates because of that hypoxic or less oxygenated environment, it mimics a lot of the responses that we see with high intensity, heavy resistance training, despite the fact that you would use much lighter loads. So very interesting to see how even local hypoxia can affect even hypertrophy and muscle growth.
Absolutely. So you talk about tools in the tool belt, especially if you're training around an injury. You notice every time I bench heavy lately, my shoulder hurts, my elbow hurts, whatever, you throw on the straps and you can just get like the tourniquets that just kind of ratchet, like $3 on Amazon. It's very painful, but it's a cool little training factor to implement there. And even if you're not injured, like I'll mix them in every few blocks and switch things up a little bit. But the next subsection in this hypoxia conversation is just breath work. So those things that we just discussed are going to require some level of investment. Obviously not very much for the tourniquets, but if you're getting a machine to actually simulate the high altitude, it is relatively expensive. You're talking $1,000 to $6,000 depending on how intense you want to get with it. But breathwork is free. Something I did play with for a while was the Wim Hof method, and I did enjoy that. That was coupled with the cold exposure. I did enjoy it. It was something that did take another 15, 20 minutes, so it was one of the first things that I did chop off of my typical routine, but it's got some cool stuff behind it. So why this works, and this is breathwork in general, it can help regulate autonomic nervous system. It toggles between sympathetic and parasympathetic states. It's going to alter CO2 tolerance, enhancing oxygen delivery via the Bohr effect. Stimulates the vagal nerve, improving HRV. It can increase nitric oxide production during nasal breathing. And the breath hold techniques can trigger adaptive responses to stress, improving resilience. This can also be helpful in reducing cortisol levels and improving stress response. Example technique I want to dive into first is that Wim Hof method, because I got a little more meat on this and there have been some studies behind this one specifically. So that method is actually controlled hyperventilation followed by breath holds. So the breath hold, to activate the sympathetic response, 30 to 40 breaths. You're going to hold on the exhale, inhale when needed, then you're holding 15 additional seconds. You repeat that 3 to 4 rounds. So Wim has done some pretty incredible things to the point where they actually ran studies on him specifically, but they also ran studies on his method using separate participants. And here's what they found. As far as autonomic nervous system control, the most famous study happened in 2014, and it showed Wim Hof practitioners could voluntarily influence their sympathetic nervous system and inflammatory response under endotoxin challenge. So what actually happened in this study? Well, they used an endotoxin called E. coli. I'm sure some of you have been familiar hearing that term on recalls on vegetables or fruits in the news. So pretty deadly. It's a fragment of this bacteria that was used, not a live virus, and it was designed to trigger a strong immune response. So flu symptoms, fever, chills, headaches, nausea. Normally, healthy people injected with this developed flu-like symptoms and a pro-inflammatory immune response within hours. What did the Wim Hof trained group do? Well, 12 healthy volunteers were trained in the Wim Hof method for 10 days before the experiment. That training included breathing techniques, which was the cyclic hyperventilation and retention. It included cold exposure, they did ice baths, and they did mindset and focus training. Now, on the day of the endotoxin injection, participants performed the cyclic Wim Hof breathing method, that 30 plus hyperventilation breaths, retention repeated for the rounds, prior to and during the immune challenge. Now, compared to the control group, the Wim Hof group produced significantly more epinephrine, which is adrenaline, during the breathing exercises. This spike in adrenaline led to an increase in anti-inflammatory cytokines, most notably IL-10, that's interleukin 10. There was a suppression of pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha or IL-6, interleukin 6, and there was a blunted immune overreaction leading to fewer flu-like symptoms, faster physiological recovery, and less overall systemic inflammation. Participants felt minimal to no symptoms despite being injected with the bacterial endotoxin. Now, why does this matter? Well, before the study, it was believed that humans could not consciously control their autonomic nervous system or innate immune response. This study proved otherwise. There was an adrenaline surge, voluntarily triggered, which modulated the immune response. The breathing acted as a powerful stress-induced hormetic event, suppressing excessive inflammation. And this allowed the participants to avoid getting sick, quote unquote, because they weren't actually going to get sick. It was just the symptoms of being sick after the immune challenge. Now, the clarification that is important to note is that this study involved the bacterial endotoxin, not a live virus. The method doesn't make you immune to viruses or bacteria, but it does help modulate the immune response, potentially reducing the severity of symptoms, preventing overreactions, which are the cytokine storms, and speeding up recovery. Now, this has interesting implications for autoimmune conditions, chronic inflammation, and possibly managing viral infections via better immune regulation, though no direct study on viral load outcomes have been shown yet. Again, this also shows greater control over HRV, norepinephrine, and immune modulation. So this is all pretty groundbreaking stuff at the time. And even to this point, as far as being able to manually transition, and activate nervous system responses, it's pretty unheard of. So they did get some data on this. If you guys are interested in this one specifically, he did write a book called The Wim Hof Method. Very interesting. And again, this is free. This is something you guys can do for free without investing in anything besides your time. It's a great way to start the day. But to kind of continue on with breath work and the benefits and what's happening there, another benefit is mental resilience and stress tolerance. So the methods can train CO2 tolerance and interoceptive awareness, which is your ability to sense internal body states. People have reported reduced anxiety, improved mental clarity, and better emotional regulation. We're also going to see an increase in epinephrine and adrenal priming, which these acute sessions are going to spike norepinephrine and epinephrine, which may boost focus, energy, and metabolic readiness. This mimics the fight or flight response, but in a safe, controlled way. Another benefit, fourth here on this list is going to be oxygen saturation. Sorry, guys, I can't talk today. It can drop to 60 to 70% during breath holds, mimicking extreme altitude briefly. This triggers the HIF-1 alpha activation, which supports mitochondrial adaptation, angiogenesis, and antioxidant defense, but not to the same degree as IHT or LH, which is the live high, train low protocol. The fifth one is anti-inflammatory response. Again, the increased IL-10 and suppression of pro-inflammatory cytokines, which may help with autoimmune conditions, recovery, or systemic inflammation, and the CO2 tolerance training, which is gradual extension of breath holds to improve that CO2 buffering capacity. So when you control your breath and you control your state, it becomes a very simple and very powerful tool. Now, another section, little bonus section here, we're going to keep it shorter because it's not going to be accessible to most of us, but there's some pretty cool data behind it. So I did want to touch on it briefly if you want to add this to your dream board. But that is hyperbaric oxygen therapy, HBOT. Some of you may have seen on social media people like Brian Johnson, the Don't Die leader there, trying to do all things longevity supporting. I think he's had a few videos on the hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Basically, this chamber of basically pure oxygen that has had some pretty cool data behind it. So what it is, 100% oxygen breathing inside a pressurized chamber, which is the total opposite of what we just talked about with acute hypoxia, where we're limiting oxygen. Why does it work? Well, it increases plasma oxygen concentration, delivering oxygen beyond red blood cells. Hyperoxygenation supports angiogenesis, collagen production, and immune function. This, again, reduces pro-inflammatory cytokines. It enhances fibroblast proliferation and tissue regeneration, and it may mobilize stem cells and improve neuroplasticity. Some science-backed benefits include accelerated wound healing, reduced inflammation, and potential cognitive benefits via enhanced brain oxygenation and neuroplasticity, as we just mentioned above. Now, obviously, those limitations are that it is very costly and clinic dependent, and it's typically used in those clinical cases for wounds, CO2 poisoning, but emerging evidence is showing for recovery and performance. So very quickly in a nutshell, HBOT delivers oxygen saturation your body can't achieve normally, which is powerful, but it's not always practical. So there you have it, guys. The most effective, science-backed health optimization extracurriculars that are available today. From heat shock proteins in the sauna to mitochondrial upregulation with red light to stem cell activation via hypoxia, these protocols aren't just hype. They're biology in action. But remember, they amplify the basics, and we have to manage and master those first. Otherwise, these are not going to move the needle very much. Then we'll choose one of these tools to explore and apply it consistently to track our progress. Remember, guys, change doesn't come in a big moment. It's built in the ways you keep showing up. Take what you learned today and build the best version of yourself for tomorrow. We'll catch you guys in the next one.